Hi, everybody. Just waiting for. Hi, Emma.
Hi, how are you? Forgive me.
Good.
So under the assumption I could do this from my desktop, but I have to do it from my
From your phone?
my phone, so it might be a little shaky.
That's okay. That's okay. So I'm really excited you're here today,
Likewise.
and I I really love this idea, this book. It brought me to awareness of things that, and I've been in this field for quite a while,
Thank
but you brought new things that I think that a lot of people need to hear about, and I
you.
think it's really important.
Well,
So before
well, thank you.
So before we get into that, I'm going to wave to everybody that's joining. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a career journalist, and I think I should say I'm a child of divorce. And about 12 years ago, I went through my own divorce. I swore I never would, but here I was. I was going through a divorce, and like most women, I assumed I should be the primary parent,
Mhm.
and the kids should stay with me. My kids were very tiny; they were a baby, and one of them was in the process of being born when I went through my
Mhm.
divorce. And so I just kind of blindly followed that model, that pattern, without scrutinizing it. Fast forward a few years after my divorce, I started a mom blog, a single
Mhm.
mom blog. It was a kind of a hobby project. I had a lot to say. I was a financial journalist. I've been always interested in money and the power of money and gender equality. And these were things I was writing about in my professional sphere. And so in this project, I just kind of working through these ideas in my own life.
Mhm.
And it started to become really clear to me. It's like, how could I be earning and thriving professionally and financially if I had these kids all the time with me? And why did I fight for them this whole time, right? And so, meanwhile, I've been growing up this large audience of single moms. My blog is called wealthysinglemommy.com, and just really like challenging my own assumptions, maybe some ideas that you're going through too. And many moms like blindly buying into these ideas and then living a different reality and kind of thinking about that. So fast forward to this day, that my site has grown into a commercial enterprise. I don't really
Mhm.
write for it anymore. I have a team of writers and editors
Mhm.
that produce content and makes advertising money. But I've become very interested in this issue around equal parenting, and it's an issue that's been worked on for decades now by activists, mostly
Mhm.
dads, but also increasingly moms and women that understand this issue very well. And there's so much social science that's out there. So academics are doing incredible work in this realm of understanding what is really best for families when parents live apart. And I just have become a scholar and a student
Mhm.
of this research. And I like to say I really don't have an opinion. I'm just the messenger. And I feel very called to use my media skills, my journalism skills, and contacts to produce media projects. Most recently, a book, but I've done other projects I'm very proud of to help
Mhm.
just the general audiences uh, understand this issue, because we are in a time of transition, and I think we owe it to ourselves and to each other to extend a lot of grace and care and understand that we all do really just care about our kids. We get blinded and distracted in rage of divorce, but we do care about our kids and we want to do what's best, but we don't always know what that is. So that's where I'm coming at from this issue, and I'm happy to talk about this and share what I know. And I'm sorry for the shaky setup here. I'm like technologically a
That's
little bit
okay.
difficult.
So I think when we talked before, we're both from divorced families. And back then, I was in the 70s. And as I was a 6 month old baby when my mom and dad divorced.
Mhm.
I hardly saw my dad. So that was kind of just the assumption for years, right? That moms, as you said, they were the best parenting, right? Is there a time or a moment in your research where you said that kind of changed, that we kind of saw a movement toward that, dads are just as important as moms? Like, is there, I know in my own theory but when do you know? Do you
Oh, well,
know like exactly when?
in terms of the social science, I
Yeah.
mean, over the last 20 years, really, there's been a huge surge and ongoing research around the importance of fathers. And because what we saw in those early years of the mass divorce, starting in, say, the 60s and the 70s, when no fault divorce became mainstream,
Hmm.
the thinking was really the dads would slip out. And the idea was then to recreate this nuclear family. So the moms remarried and that became the new dad, like the Brady Bunch, right? Like,
Yeah.
where were the other, like, one of the parents deceased, but the other one is just like, as the mom and dad, is Mr. and Mrs. Brady. And the divorced dad would go off and start a new family, and maybe there was some connection, but it was really just this vintage idea about this 1950s nuclear family that was everyone was trying to recreate. And then it became like the 70s and the 80s and the rise of mainstream feminism. And everyone's like, well, we don't even need men at all, right? Like women can do it all because now we're working and earning.
Mm-hmm.
And so the financial necessity of that dad became questioned. But then we just organically, I mean, ultimately, these things come out of people's human experiences, right? We saw that kids were not doing well when the dads weren't involved. And we also, right?
Yeah.
And while this is thankfully getting a lot of great mainstream media today, when we take fatherhood away from men, men don't do well. And we have a crisis of men for men in this country where we have suicide rates, addiction rates, unemployment rates, a lag of higher education attainment for men and boys across the board. We're in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no wonder when we've been telling men and boys that they are irrelevant in many ways, including in families. So all these things are kind of coming together to this day. And then we just have organically, moms are like, we're screaming about equality inside of married households. Like we have, everyone's very comfortable talking about that men and women and moms today should be doing the same of domestic labor inside of married families. But people start to squirm when we talk about it in separate families. Mm-hmm. But that's changing. It's changing because people just get it. There's usually no reason why it shouldn't happen. People organically do it. It makes common sense. It keeps people out of family courts, keeps the money out of divorce, and it just makes, it's just a kinder, easier, common sense way of splitting up.
Do you think it's more to do with that? Do you think everyone knows the benefits of it? Like we hear a lot about, oh, 50-50, it's 50-50 because the court ordered it, or that's what's normal now. But do they all understand the actual benefits of it, right? Like,
yeah, that's a good question. And so, I mean, they don't because no, but most people are not nerds like me that sit around and read this stuff all day long. But I can run down some of the benefits. I mean, so ultimately, there's so much research, and now there's a number of meta studies. So meta studies are studies that study the studies, right? They crunch the numbers because studies are going to pull from different population pools, will be different sizes. Of course, the researchers have their biases, et cetera, et cetera. So then there's usually, if there's a large enough body of research, there's a call for a meta study that's going to look at these things more holistically and universally. And so there's a number of meta studies now that look and see that the most recent large one that was done last year, the paper was published last year, and the quote from the scientists is in Europe was, the verdict is out when parents share parenting time equally versus sole, majority time with one parent, the mom. The outcomes are nearly identical to parent families, nuclear families for two biological married parents, and on and on. But it goes beyond that. I mean, I really believe that separated divorced families are agents for change for all families. I have had a sense of that, and we're actually seeing the evidence of that. So we see in, for example, some researcher looked at Ohio, the state of Ohio in the United States, that does not have an equal parenting laws on the books. But like many communities, places around the world, there's organic pockets where people are doing 50-50 on their own. Maybe a judges in that community order it and it trickles in, like it's just happening. So in counties in Ohio where equal parenting is the norm and judges are most likely to default to 50-50, child abuse rates were lower than counties where it's still the old-fashioned way where moms have it. And the researchers, they concluded, like, look, one reason we believe, they don't know this to be true, and this, by the way, those are substantiated charges of child abuse, right? Because we can get into false allegations and how contentious divorce inspires false allegations of all kinds. But the researchers said, like, we can guess, like, when both parents have time to themselves to work and earn and relax, go to the gym, right, they're less likely to be stressed out and take it out on the kids. Common sense.
That's incredible.
I get that. Is
wow.
Mom?
Yeah, but that is like great findings, right? That if you have co-parenting and it's decently equal or whatever, that it decreases domestic violence incidences.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's child abuse, and we see similar trends for domestic intimate partner violence. And one more study that I'd like to call out that I could talk about all day long. So Spain It's very interesting because of their, I think they have 17 regions, so would consider like a state or a province. So 17 of the regions, 8 of them have equal parenting presumption laws from a few years ago. So it's a really great case study of, compare and contrast in one country. And so what they found when it comes to gender equality, well, first of all, the states where the equal parenting is the presumption, um, somebody has a comment I'd love to address
Mm-hmm.
this
Yeah,
eventually
just it.
if we have time. But in the states in Spain where equal parenting is the presumption, uh, the kids did better. The kids had better relationships with their dads, and the moms were more likely to work and earn after the divorce. But to me, that's a common sense
Mm-hmm.
thing. There's other evidence of that. I've done my own research in that regard. But the other piece of it I think is so exciting is in the states where the equal parenting presumption, there was more gender equality in the families that were married in those regions.
Oh, wow.
So there was more employment and higher earning amongst the moms, the married moms in equal parenting regions,
Mm-hmm.
and more care work from the dads.
That's fascinating. That's new, just came
Uh,
out this
a
last
couple
year.
years ago,
Yeah, wow, that's
right?
incredible stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I just think, and I've been post-divorce 7 years and I wasn't even aware, right? Like I think like, I don't know if it's our generation, like my, 70s, 80s. Are the younger ones doing it better, Emma,
Yes.
than we are?
Younger parents, that's the thing I tell parents if you're fighting and arguing, younger people, it's like night and day. I've been working in this space for 12 years now, and I feel like the conversation is dramatically better. Younger parents that are going through these changes in their families, many, many, many more of them are doing equal parenting. The courts are changing dramatically. It is a kinder, more equitable world out there. And I tell parents that our kids are not going to grow up and have June Cleaver families. They're going to have some other configuration and they are going to do 50-50 and they're going to look back and judge you.
Yeah, they
And
will.
50-50 is going to be the norm in the future and they are going to look back and judge you. So choose carefully.
One of the things that you said that I listened to in one of your other podcasts was that when your child knows that both parents are committed to you,
Mm-hmm.
you know how important that is to a child. Like, I've got my dad, I've got my mom. It's great, right? So that's one of the big benefits as well.
That is, and that's Dr. William Fabricius at
Hmm.
Arizona State University, and he's one of the real leading researchers and activists in this space. And he just has been working on this issue for decades in terms of the research. He does wonderful research, and he found that the closer the schedules get to 50-50, so yeah, it's great. Majority of the time, you can say, oh well, the kids spend 3 days a week with their dad. That's enough. He found the closer that number is to 50-50, the better. And those were his words, where he said, when kids know that their dad is in it to win it, when their dad is equally committed as their mom, it lowers their anxiety, not just today, but for the rest of their lives, because they are not afraid their dad is going to slip out and leave them.
Yeah.
As we said, because that has been the norm. That has been the norm in our communities for decades now. They're not dumb. Those kids, they see it with their eyes and other families around them, and they know it in their hearts.
Do you think it's also kind of the mom's issue as well? Like, I was talking to a mediator, and she's a friend of mine. She said, Karen, I've had one mom call up about complaining that there's not enough vegetables when they're with their father. And I'm wondering if it's like, I'm just like, well, like, you laugh about it, but these are what moms are doing, right? They're complaining that their kids aren't getting enough vegetables on the weekends or with their time with their dad. I'm sure you've heard or hundreds of stories about that, right? It's like,
Oh, I have so many. My favorite was I was speaking to a large group of moms. It was in a large tech company, and it was breadwinning moms in this
mhm,
group. I mean, these were like very powerful, successful, educated women. And I gave my spiel, like probably a lot of what I've just shared here, very similar, I think very compelling. And like thinking I changed everyone's
mhm,
hearts and minds.
mhm.
And then we have questions, and one of the moms is like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I get that. But I'm going through a divorce, and my soon to be ex husband doesn't do a good job of rinsing the dish soap off the dishes. So don't you think the kids should be with me primarily? And
Sorry,
I'm
but that's
yeah, I do think they should if you want to set your kids up for a lifetime of lower academic, professional achievement,
yeah.
higher addiction rates, teen pregnancy, incarceration rates, and poor relationships. If that's your goal, knock yourself out.
Wow.
But really, more realistically, to address this issue, I mean, we have set moms up to believe, and I will put myself in this group, that it is our job. I mean, it's a burden. Everything comes down to rights and responsibilities. Like, if we want the right, if we want to share responsibilities, if we want those dads to take equal responsibility for, yes, paying, but also caring and wiping the butt and doing the pickup and driving around to travel, soccer, team, whatever, all that equal responsibility, you have to give up equal rights. And it is that dad's right to serve a vegetable or French fry or a cracker, whatever. That is his right. It is his right. And yeah, you can drag everybody to family court and blow this thing up, but to what expense? I mean, that drama and the expense and the stress of that, but also you are diminishing that dad and ultimately compromising your kid's relationship with him. And that comes at a very, very high cost that we are only now beginning to understand.
Yeah, because as you said before, the benefits is also for you. It's not just the best interest of the children is this, but it's also in the best interest of you as the mom.
Right. So you're welcome. You don't have to worry about menus for half the time now. Congratulations. You're welcome. Go out, go live your best life.
Yeah.
And you can shove vegetables on your kids' throats all you want on your weeks.
Right.
And that is,
if you think of,
it's a gift. You are giving your kids the gift of a father. And that comes at the expense of you being a control freak, but being a control freak is exhausting. So let it go.
Yeah, it is exhausting. I just think of I don't know about your mom, but my mom, she was full on all the time. And it's a lot, right? So, freeing up your time and having your life is just really beneficial. So, do you want me to, I'm living 50-50 with a 16-year-old daughter. She is in therapy for depression, anxiety, and self-harming. She feels like she has to be two different people. It's been a nightmare.
I'm not a clinician, so I can't draw a conclusion between 50-50 schedule and self-harm.
Yeah. Sorry. Queen RHI. I don't know. That's more of a therapist type of thing. Yeah. So any other, are there, this is kind of a weird question, but are there any cons to this? Like, we know about the benefits. Is there anything that's...
I have never seen any study that found that there's a negative. That said, it's not always easy. I mean, I'll say my kids are teenagers now, and I hear it's never easy for the kids to go back and forth. I mean, just their stuff, packing up, that never goes away.
Yeah. I remember those days.
It's annoying to hard. It is. But the benefits outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, because dads bring, I'm sure there's been lots of studies of the benefits that a mom brings to the benefits of a dad, right? Like, dads are like, if you think of it, I'm just doing out there, it's like a problem solver. Dads are really like problem solver type of, and mothers are different this way. So, I mean, maybe if that was spelt out more, that like who the males are, like who the dads are, what they give them, would that help women kind of ease up a bit, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, there's lots of research that shows that, the inherent strengths of parenting by men and women. But for one, I feel like gender roles are changing very quickly, and it's hard to buy into that, right? Because it's a slippery slope. It's like, because you can very quickly go into like, well, then dad should be breadwinners and mothers should be caretakers, right? Right. And then there's the moms, the parents who are like solo parenting, like truly solo parenting. And they're like, well, I've solved plenty of problems all day long.
True.
And right.
True.
So I maybe that's a better question for somebody that's more well versed in that. But that said, there are inherent personality traits. I mean, that's why we have, most of us prefer one gender over the other to date, and we have romantic relationships because there are gender qualities that are, are binary. They are.
Right. So tell me more about your book. I know you've spent a long time researching and do you have a copy here?
Just randomly.
Yeah, the 50-50 solution. I love the cover. And all it's like, so it came out in February, March. Is that, and
sorry, March, yes.
And I'm trying to think if I have any other questions today. Does anybody have any questions for Emma? She's a wealth of knowledge. knowledge. And if you guys have any questions, just comment before we wrap up. Nobody's. Do you have any other? I love it. We even put it in our book because we knew how important it is that people actually are aware that this is actually the benefits. I myself am just thinking how beneficial it is. You have all the backing, the research. I'm just saying, I think if moms knew, because I'm a mom and I knew I was kind of a controlling mom, kind of, you know, that old mentality that I know better. It's how I grew up with my mom, and it's kind of been this like socialized within us too. And I hear other moms too. So I think this is a real win-win for everybody, though.
It is, and I do think it is on women to lead this, because we do have the power. Women have the power in domestic spheres. Most of the world, you walk into a family court and you really want those kids with you full time, you will get it.
Yeah.
Right? What's more powerful than that? That is true power.
I think it's still, I did another live with another coach who does immigrants and expats, and I think there's parts of the world that still just give it to the young children, to their mothers until they reach a certain age, and then they'll start co-parenting. Have you heard of that?
It doesn't surprise me. And then there's, very fundamentalist nations where the children are property of their fathers, right?
Oh, okay. So it's reverse, right? So
yes,
yeah.
So I do think it is on women, right, to lead this change.
Yeah,
and I hear that. I mean, there's a court case in Minnesota where a mom took the dad who had a minority schedule with the kids. It's like, no, you need to take the kids 50-50, and he refused, and it became a Supreme Court case, a state Supreme Court case, because just like, you're impeding on my ability to work and earn.
Oh, wow.
It's a human rights issue.
Human rights. You're right. Yeah.
And you could say it's a human rights issue in terms of fathers' rights, because we are inherently have an inherent right to parent our own children, and children have an inherent right to be parented by their parents. And if we are compromising that, we are really disrupting just fundamental human rights and really the natural order of things. And I think it's also but also I will extend I do think there is a huge gap in child development, understanding of child development research. So I think a lot of what this is rooted in is this attachment parenting, understanding of what attachment parenting is really about, and this old idea that attachment parenting there's really one attachment, that kid who's going to attach, that baby's going to attach to one adult, the nursing mother, of course, and everybody else was like, yeah, it's nice to have a loving grandparent, yes, it's nice to have an involved dad, but they're just like these satellites around this primal attachment. But that's not true. Babies can attach to infinite number of adults, right? And more love is more love.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like, the more love a child or baby has, the better they actually do, right? But we do. It's like we're kind of possessed with the baby, right? It's like mom and baby, right? So I've heard I think it was Gabor Mate, the famous doctor. He was saying that dads have been cultured not to do that so much, but he wants them get in there, right? Like, be that, you can hold the baby, you can change the baby, get right in there, do that equal, wake up in the middle of the night, do it all.
Well, there's biological change. I mean, even in pregnancy, men's hormones start to change. Like, this is a fundamental biological change that happens in men and women. And that's just beginning to be understood in the grand scheme of things, right? So it's on people with some public presence like yourself and myself to bring that research to everyone's attention.
And the sad thing is what you mentioned before, which I did want to bring up again, is that when men lose contact with their children, it's really detrimental for them, like really detrimental for them.
Yeah, of course.
Like their mental health struggles.
Women get that. We understand that intuitively. So why don't we think that men experience that?
Yeah. So where can we buy the book?
Amazon. Sorry.
Amazon?
It's on every retailer, Barnes & Noble. I mean, I'm in the United States, so Barnes & Noble, and to your local independent bookstores site too, or walk in, ask them for it. And it's in libraries, you can ask your local library to order it.
I also
it's in the source books. It's a mainstream book.
Okay, I also think this book, sorry to interrupt, but I also think this book is good for lawyers and mediators and coaches and anyone that
Politicians.
works in this,
I just
politicians.
spoke last week to
Yeah.
the Scottish Parliament group. I'm speaking to a professional divorce professionals group later this year. It is absolutely, and everyday people like, I mean, I talk about this issue all the time with people in my life, you know, friends that might not even directly apply to them, but I find them coming back like, oh, you know, my sister or my friend's going through a divorce, and I thought about what we were talking about years ago, and it trickles into the culture, and that's how things change. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do think it's more than just the divorcing people. I think the people that work with it, the politicians, knowledge is power,
Mm-hmm.
and dads groups, anybody that can kind of like all of the communities. I think involved in family should know about this. I
Absolutely.
think so.
Absolutely.
Your research is amazing, and thanks for bringing it up to my attention, so I could bring it to more attention. Oh, I think we have
Yeah.
I think a better argument is not that our children impeded our ability to earn. What we should be fighting is for the ability to earn, regardless of whether we have children or not, men or women.
Nothing to argue about there.
No, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah, that's
Yep.
another topic.
Yeah, you go work on
Yeah,
that. Let,
yeah,
let me know how I
yeah,
can support you.
yeah. Well, Emma, thank you for coming on today, and we'll keep trying to spread this awareness because it's really important for people
I
to.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy speaking with you.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.